Okay, we just received some insane balance changes in the new Naruto to Boruto Shinobi Striker update. Yep, this is actually in the game now. But let's go over it step by step. The first big change is that they reduced the cooldown of most of the summonings in the game. The Salamander is sitting at 15 seconds now. Sounds okay to me actually. Toad is at 15 too now. I don't know. Okay, I guess. Maybe not gonna break the game. Still kinda wild. But Slug at 15 seconds? Are you kidding me? This thing is basically shadow stitching at this point. But it also gets rid of your enemy's jutsus, also reduces their attack power on top of that defense drop, provides damn near infinite healing potential for your entire team, allows you to cleanse any debuffs, good on objectives, can be used as cover, and just like the Toad and the Snake is one of the longest stuns in the entire game with access to summoning traps. In my opinion, that thing already was the best healing jutsu in the entire game back then when it was still sitting at 30 seconds. I mean, yeah, it doesn't have the same health pool anymore, but in order to get rid of it, you still have to spend some resources of your own, or at the very least are occupied for a short moment, which also generates pseudo-man advantage for a moment. And when it dies, it can also still proc a multitude of insane buffs for your entire team if you run clothing perks that trigger on death of allies on your team comp. So even if that thing were to always almost immediately get removed, you still probably get your defense drops and most likely a kill out of it, or at least a couple of heals and some debuff cleanse before it gets removed, and it will still draw attention and resources away from the enemy team, and can still buff your entire team if you have a team comp built around it. So yeah, you can get rid of it. Wow. Still a great jutsu, will still even in worst case scenarios do more than a lot of other jutsus with similar cooldowns. You can just use it in a combo too, basically like a shadow stitching, and everything else, all the value it can still provide while it stays on the field after that, is just a bonus on top at this point. It also just allows you to provide healing for your teammates on 2 different locations, which is super useful on flag and base battles. You can just drop a Slug for your defense type at one base, he should have that, and you can move on to the next base to support the rest of your team. And then they brought the Snake summoning down to 10 seconds even. You can't make that shit up. Yes, it doesn't see a ton of use, but that's because 99% of people out there just don't manage to utilize it properly. I mean, yeah, on base it's a no-brainer, but it's also a good jutsu outside of that. Your team just has to play around these things properly to actually get full value out of them. But even in a vacuum, that thing guard breaks, has insane damage total, especially if you learn how to combo with this thing and how to keep people inside of it or lure them into it. Area denial. Disabling your enemy jutsus alone would already be strong on a 10-second cooldown. It's also one of the few hand sign jutsus on the attack class. And then again, summoning traps. One of the longest stuns in the entire game, being on one of the lowest cooldowns in the game. It's absolutely ridiculous. Strange Taste plus Snake is just gonna go crazy on base battles. 10 seconds downtime in between each snake, 9 seconds with Clear Minds, even lower if we are talking Black Crane Bottom plus Blue Flash Medicine, a Strange Taste buff or maybe even a 7 Tails Old Flower Cannon or some other cooldown buff from a teammate's jutsu. I wanna see you take a base if they keep putting a snake on it every 5 seconds. They are gonna out-rotate your build eventually. Put someone in a summoning trap with a snake and that's an insta-kill on its own. 10-second cooldown for now, wow. Like, yeah, Salamander, okay, that's fine. Toad, annoying I guess, but I can live with it. But that is just straight up insane, I'm sorry. I mean, it's maybe just not gonna be a major issue, as I said. Most people out there don't know how to play around things like that properly. Your random teammates are not gonna adjust to that playstyle most of the time either. But if we are looking at the kind of people that can make good use of a water pillar in game modes like survival or combat, that's pretty much the same skill set there. And that caliber of player is just gonna have a field day, I'm telling you all. They reduced the cooldown of Leaf Flash and Leaf Rising, which is also not gonna break the game or anything, but what actually made them think they would need to buff any of the taijutsu moves? Like, what? That's just totally unasked for. Tornado High increased final stage damage. Fair enough. It will consequently also heal you a little bit more now, which is nice. Wood Style Laughing Buddha cooldown time reduced, that's cool. Increased damage with Cross Lantern. I mean, it already had insane damage total if you hold them in the flames, and it's not that hard either. If you do an up-close Cross Lantern into a charge attack with one of the swords, you'll do like a good 50 to 60% or something with just that alone. So, I don't know, that thing might just deal mad damage now, but we'll have to see. Definitely not complaining about seeing a little buff to it. Sai ulti can be activated mid-air now, just like the Shikigami Dance Storm, and that one now also spawns an explosion of paper bombs around enemies that receive a certain amount of damage. So that's pretty cool, and it kind of reminds me of what Conan did to Obito in the anime. Definitely a fun change, but besides the fact that this secret technique probably didn't really need a buff to begin with, If you wanted to buff it, you just make it so people can just sub to the initial hit, or give it the insect jamming treatment where the debuff can't be removed. Because people are just gonna run emergency exit, sub to the initial hit to cleanse the debuff and get access to their jutsus again, and then just remove the debuff from their teammates too, potentially with moves like Youthful Roar or Slug or something. I mean, yeah, of course, you can just wait for them to use their sub before you ult if they have some AoE status cleanse on their build. But that's also why I'm saying it doesn't really need a buff. It's a really good secret technique with a good charge rate and already cools down while it's active. With the added damage now, running an ult charge build with good tool damage, maybe having a 7-Tails ult on your team or something, you can maybe even get it back while it's still active, I don't know. Definitely an interesting change though. Takemi Kazushi no Kami has a lower cooldown now. Totsuka Blade also got its cooldown reduced. Gedo Statue has iframes now, which, you know, is nice, but you're probably still gonna die afterwards if you don't get a full-on quadra kill with it or immediately receive a big burst of healing at the end of it. Ring Rain Ground Hold can be activated mid-air now, which is not the whole story though, because apparently if you cast it mid-air you don't actually get the healing sphere. You still get the buffs and a small burst of healing, but no healing aura, and I don't know if your teammates would get the buffs too. I mean, it's still a buff and adds more flexibility to just have that option, but I'm just not really sure yet if that's just a bug or if that's how it's intended to work. Because patch notes just say it can be used mid-air now. And they also updated the description, and what you can read there sounds like a completely different story. So I don't know, maybe just in case, report that to Bandai. If it's a bug, then they can work on fixing it, and if not, they will really have to work on their communication and translations, I don't know. They buffed all of the knuckles, hand-to-hand types, gloves and all these kind of attack weapons, adding more forward momentum to their light attacks, which means it should be a little bit easier for you now to close the gap with these lower range weapons and actually hit your opponents a little easier now. A weird thing that we noticed is that it does list hand-to-hand combat, but not Burning Sun and most of the other hand-to-hand variants. But we compared Burning Sun and basic hand-to-hand combat and couldn't really spot any major differences. So I would just assume it is for all of these hand-to-hand type weapons, but yeah, who knows. On the Danzo Kunai they increased the effect duration of downtime on the ground glides, which I think means you have a little more animation lock or something. And they improved axis correction of wind style slashes, so I guess they'll just be a little easier to land consistently now. The Psy SS Plus weapons ranged attacks will now continue to track enemies after dodging, so also a little bit easier to land consistently. They increased the ninja tool speed of Purple Lightning, Wind Release Bullet, Water Release Bullet, Fire Release Bullet, the Rasengan tool, and the Lightning Release Bullet. I think that means they activate slightly faster now or something, making them a little bit easier to use reactively and overall feel a little bit smoother than they already were. Ring of Spitfire adjusted the motion when used in the air, and I didn't really notice that. But what I noticed, I don't know if that was already a thing before, but I think that's new, is that when you hit grounded enemies, they seem to have a longer hit stun now. I mean, look at this, I can just keep multiple people controlled with this thing for several seconds. That is pretty nice, not gonna lie. But maybe I'm just stupid and it's just not new at all and they just, I don't know, removed some drifting you had when using it mid-air or whatever. Let me know in the comments if you maybe know more on that one, because I just haven't used this thing enough. I wouldn't notice, to be honest. Flaming Whip cooldown got reduced by 20%, which is also kinda weird. That's your ass landing in a Flaming Hook into elbow combo 20% more often potentially. I mean, yeah, it's not broken. You can just block this thing, which is nice. But there's still so much toxic bullshit you can do with this thing. I don't know if people are gonna appreciate this change. I mean, increase its range, bump up its damage, lower its cooldown, do what you want with it. It can just be blocked, we're chilling. But maybe make it so you can actually sub its initial hit. Because this tool is just pissing people off. It may not be broken, but at the point where you had unsubbable startups that lead into abilities that reset or block substitution, it potentially allows you to skip essential parts of the fight. You don't need to get anybody's sub, you just land one Flaming Hook and there is nothing that they can do anymore except maybe having a move like Body Blow or something like that can actually free you from enemy combos. People are just gonna call it toxic cheese and be frustrated. Were it not exactly those kind of game states that you wanted to counteract with the recent changes to fake tags and heavenly hand power, that you also completely messed up, by the way, because all you did was essentially buff heavenly hand power builds, because you placed attacks faster now and heavenly hand power has a lower cooldown. Oh yeah, wow, you can block the tags now, woohoo! But two of them will guard break you anyways. And if you can block when they swap you, you may as well just dodge when they are trying to swap you, which you already could do before, and literally is just pressing the same button at the same time, but to dodge it instead of blocking it, you also have to flick the stick. Wow, such a huge difference. So you didn't nerf anything there really. The only difference is that you have your swap more often now. I already went on a whole 10-minute rant on that topic in my last development letter breakdown towards the end of that video in the balance patch part. So if you guys struggle with swap builds, don't know how to play against them, or just want to hear my thoughts on these changes, just click on the video that's going to be linked in the end card of this video later on. They buffed a few cast characters, and you can now also not pick up the flag anymore while being on your summoned animal. Before this update, you would drop the flag when you summon your mount, but you would still be able to just pick it back up afterwards and carry it anyways. That's not possible anymore. I don't know if they removed that for every summoning. Somebody just showed me a video they found on Reddit where somebody experienced that with a Ninja Hawk, so maybe it's just that specific summoning, maybe just flyers, maybe all summonings, who knows. This was not mentioned in any patch notes, so maybe it's just a bug, or maybe that was never intended to begin with, and that you could pick it back up in the first place was the actual bug and they just now fixed that, which would explain why it doesn't show in the patch notes, because they would just see it as a bug fix and not as a nerf. But to be honest, I don't really like this change, because that was one of the few things the Ninja Hound was better at than the other summonings. That's its only real niche it has, being faster and dealing more damage. Like being able to set up one-shot combos with the dog, carrying a flag, that kind of stuff. So I feel like if you could at least carry the flag with the Ninja Hounds, that would help balancing out the summoned animals a little bit better. What we can definitely say though is that although they seem to try to improve their communication and listen to feedback more, they still just kind of absolutely suck at fully communicating these changes properly. You always sit there and have to wonder, what do they actually mean by that? Then you sometimes have translation errors or descriptions telling you the opposite of what they actually do, not all changes being mentioned in the first place. It's just such bad quality control in that area. Anyways, let me know what you guys think about this update down below in the comments. Peace out, and never forget, if it has a health bar, it has to die.